A few years ago, I was standing outside a 700-year-old castle with a small group of American tourists. They looked around with wide-eyed fascination, and one of them, the husband, asked very seriously, "Did you build this to match the movies?" I paused. I told him no, it's been standing for over 7 centuries. He frowned, processing that like he'd just discovered a glitch in the timeline. Right, but it didn't look authentic until recently, did it? I tried explaining the layers of history, how each century added its own touches. He nodded, but in a way that suggested I might have just admitted to a secret conspiracy. Then his wife chimed in, "So Britain basically copied America, right? That's why it's so old." I took a breath and reminded them politely, the United States didn't exist until 1776. They looked stunned, as if I had just explained time travel. Later, I was behind the counter at a London train station. An American couple approached, moving with the kind of confidence that suggests they are about to uncover a global secret. The woman leaned in and asked, "What language did you speak before English?" I blinked. "English evolved here over centuries." She frowned. "Right, but we kept it pure in America." I explained that English originated in England. She tilted her head like I had just revealed a plot twist. Her husband jumped in. "Well, you speak it very well now." I nodded. "Thank you, but it's not a performance." He whispered as if sharing a secret. "No, you sound like the original accent. We upgraded ours." I let him marinate in that thought while I quietly processed the cognitive dissonance in front of me. A few days later, I was in Bath, near the Roman baths. An American tourist squinted at the ruins and asked, "Did you rebuild this after America became independent?" I told him the Romans built it nearly 2 millennia ago. He leaned closer, touching the ancient stones. "It looks too real to be that old. Surely it's a set." I reminded him, "The Romans were here long before the United States existed as an idea." He nodded slowly, as if that somehow validated his suspicion that the world was a giant theme park designed for tourists. Then came the ultimate question. So did America invent spas first, or did you copy us? I had to step aside. At that point, I was considering whether centuries of Roman engineering might have been easier to explain with emojis. I was in Windsor, guiding a small American family around the castle. The father asked very earnestly, "So, who elects the king?" I explained that the monarchy is hereditary. You inherit the throne. He blinked. "Hereditary? So no elections? No voting?" I nodded. "Exactly, no elections for the monarch." He looked shocked, as if I had told him water doesn't exist. His teenage daughter whispered dramatically, "That's so undemocratic." I tried to explain that Britain has parliament, which is elected, and the monarchy is mostly ceremonial. He leaned in conspiratorially. "So what's the approval rating?" I laughed softly. "The king doesn't need approval ratings." He frowned, determined to find the loophole in our system. Later, in a London cafe, another American asked why Britain hasn't upgraded to a presidential system. I paused, considering how to answer without causing a temporal paradox. I said, "The system evolved over centuries. It works differently here." He shook his head like he knew better. "No, you need a president like normal countries. It's more efficient." I sipped my coffee, quietly observing how certainty can flourish even in the face of history. A few days later, I was in a pub in Manchester. An American man pointed at the chalkboard menu and asked, "Do you get instructions on what to order?" I told him most people just ask the bartender. He frowned. "But there's no app? No guided tour? How do you know what's safe?" I explained that pubs have existed for centuries without instruction manuals. He leaned closer. "So, you just choose? Randomly?" I nodded. "Exactly." His wife, meanwhile, was inspecting the interior. "Did you decorate this for tourists?" she asked, gesturing at the dark wooden beams and low ceilings. "No, it's just old," I said. She frowned. "So it's authentic, not staged?" I nodded again. She tapped the wood like she expected it to be a prop. "And the ale, is it curated too?" At that moment I realized, if your country is only a few centuries old, any building older than your independence feels like performance art. I was in York, sitting in a cab with an American couple. The driver was on the left side of the car. The husband squinted. Wait, why is the steering wheel there? I explained, we drive on the left. Oh, so when did Britain switch? After America invented roads? He asked. I paused. Long before cars existed, actually. He nodded slowly, as if that somehow made perfect sense. Then he said proudly, right, so you flipped it for tourists. I leaned back, marveling at how a 200-year-old traffic pattern could be interpreted as deliberate branding. I was in a London bookshop when an American tourist approached, holding a small grammar guide. So, do you still speak real English here? He asked. I blinked. English originated here. This is the original version. He nodded slowly, as if he'd just solved a crossword puzzle backward. But Noah Webster improved it, right? He asked. We Americans streamlined it, made it better. I smiled politely. Yes, he modified spelling, but he didn't invent the language. He tapped the book thoughtfully. So, every time we speak English in America, it's like a remix. Exactly. I said, keeping a straight face. Meanwhile, his wife was listening to the accents around the shop. Do you all rehearse these accents? She whispered conspiratorially. No. I said. They develop naturally over centuries. She shook her head. But it sounds coordinated. Like you all agreed on a soundtrack. I nodded slowly, thinking how often people try to fit centuries of evolution into a single frame of reference. In Bath, I guided another American couple near the Roman baths. Did you rebuild this after movies made it famous? The man asked. I explained the baths are nearly 2,000 years old. His eyes widened. So, you didn't renovate it for tourists? No, I said. It's been maintained carefully over centuries. The woman tapped the stone steps, expecting them to be hollow. So, who decided on the design? Was there a theme board? I explained, no one designed it for aesthetics. People just lived there. She frowned. So, it's not curated? No. I said. It's just history. He nodded slowly. Right, so every building in Britain is like organic branding. I sipped my tea and realized that when history feels too old, the human brain automatically assumes deliberate design. Later, I was in a pub in Liverpool. An American man pointed to the beer taps. So, you just choose randomly? Yes, I said. He nodded, impressed. That's bold. Very authentic. His wife gestured to the pub's interior. And you've been keeping this medieval vibe for how long? I explained centuries. She blinked. So, no one redecorated for tourists? Nope. I said. We just let it age naturally. He tapped the bar thoughtfully. So it's organic storytelling. Yes, I said. Exactly. And at that moment, I realized. Americans naturally read intent into things that simply exist. I was at a small cafe in Bristol when an American couple approached the counter. You guys are really polite, the husband said, surveying the baristas. I nodded. Yes, that's just normal here. He leaned in. But, do you train people to say sorry all the time? I smiled. No training. It's habit. His wife whispered to him. It's like a national performance. I let that one slide. Then the husband asked, so when you're sarcastic, is that scripted? I froze. No, that's natural. He leaned back, nodding knowingly. Right, so you all have a sense of humor, class? I chuckled quietly, realizing that confidence in misunderstanding doesn't require facts. Later, they tried ordering food with exaggerated politeness, speaking as if the menu might be a complex puzzle. By the time they left, I had decided that the subtlety of British understatement is practically invisible to first-time American visitors, and that's exactly why it's so entertaining. In York, I guided another American group around a 900-year-old fortress. Did you build this after the movies? One asked. I explained it predates modern cinema by almost a millennium. The husband squinted. So, it's not a replica? Nope, I said. It's real stone, real history. The wife tapped the battlements like expecting plastic props. So who decided on the color? I shrugged. No one. It just aged naturally. He nodded thoughtfully. Right, so all of Britain is organic branding? Yes, I said, exactly. Later, they asked if the battlements were renovated for tourists every 50 years. I explained careful restoration, not thematic updates. They whispered conspiratorially. So, Britain invented historical realism. I smiled and walked away, realizing some conclusions are more entertaining than truth. A few days later, I was in Bath again, talking to a different American family. So, Britain existed before America? The father asked. Yes, I said. He tilted his head. So, this is ancient? Yes, I said. He nodded slowly, processing 2,000 years of civilization like a glitching computer. His daughter asked, So, all your towns and roads existed before 1776? I explained how Roman roads, medieval towns, and centuries of construction predate America. She leaned closer. So, you didn't copy anything from America? Nope, I said. They whispered to each other. Right, so everything here is pre-American. Exactly. I'm watching the mental gears struggle to reconcile the timeline. That never gets old. I was back in London, sitting in a cab with an American couple. The driver was, of course, on the left side. The husband squinted. Wait, why is the steering wheel there? I explained that in Britain, we drive on the left. Oh, so you switched after America invented cars? He asked confidently. Nope, I said. We've been driving on the left for centuries, long before cars even existed. He nodded slowly, as if that somehow confirmed a hidden master plan. Then he leaned in proudly. So, you flipped it for tourists? I sighed quietly. No. Just centuries of habit. His wife tapped the dashboard. So, the roads are themed. Yes, I said dryly. Exactly. By the time we reached our destination, I realized. Americans naturally assign intention to things that simply evolved. It's entertaining, frustrating, and endlessly fascinating. I was in a traditional pub in Edinburgh when an American man stared at the menu like it was an unsolvable riddle. You just choose, he asked. Yes, I said. He nodded. Very brave. His wife was more curious about the ambiance. Did someone curate this medieval vibe for tourists? Nope. It's been here for centuries, I replied. She tapped the beams and the tables, expecting hidden mechanisms or props. And the ale, is it authentic? Yes. Naturally brewed. No branding required. He scribbled in a notebook. Britain is basically living history theater. I smiled quietly. In their minds, everything older than 200 years was a designed performance. In reality, it just exists. After weeks of guiding Americans through castles, pubs, and streets, I've noticed a pattern. Americans are confident, curious, and sometimes catastrophically wrong about timelines. They assume intention where none exists, often reading history like a movie script. Buildings older than their country are too real. Accents sound coordinated. Social customs are scripts. Roads and traffic patterns are deliberate branding. Even language feels like a remix of their imagination. But here's the fascinating part. They don't mean harm. They bring a level of curiosity, energy, and boldness that's oddly charming. They ask questions most locals wouldn't even think of. They challenge history with absolute certainty. They interpret centuries of human culture through their own timeline and worldview. So, if you're American planning to visit the UK, bring curiosity, not certainty. Bring questions, not assumptions. And remember, the UK doesn't need to be discovered. It's been here the whole time. Watching people try to discover it. That's the real entertainment. If this kind of absurd cultural clash fascinates you, stick around. There's plenty more where that came from.